Good afternoon. Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Welcome to the Just Gonna Say It podcast. I hope you all are having a great afternoon. It's a great week. Super busy around here. Maybe we'll tell you what's going on with all that. We're going to talk about cheap pickups today and why I think they are a problem. This is based on a question that we got on a live stream and a video that I've been meaning to do. But instead of doing it in a video, I figured I'd have the conversation with you. So we'll chat about that in just a minute. I want to thank all my Patreon supporters, my YouTube member supporters who make these videos possible, as well as all of you who watch every week. You'll notice that the setup is quite different. We are in the new place and we are still kind of, there's boxes and stuff unpacked and etc. So we are getting things together, but still a little echoey, still a little, sounds not exactly what it normally is, just because we're still in transition. So that kind of is what it is for the week. I'm sure there'll be somebody who'll get in the comments and talk about how echoey it is and what I could do to make it different, but I'm not going to. We're just going to wait until next week and it'll probably be better. So, yeah, because not all the furniture is where it's supposed to be and that kind of stuff. So, you know how it is when you move. So, so there is that. That's what we got going this week. So, we're going to talk today about cheap pickups. And it's interesting because, and we're going to keep this to pickups. Obviously, this applies to a lot of other things. But there's a couple of aspects here. When I say cheap pickups, what I mean is somebody asked me the other day, how can somebody be on the internet more or less, making hand wound pickups for, $30 single coils and $50 humbuckers, right? How are they doing that? When your stuff is $100 for a single coil and $140 for a humbucker, why? What's the difference there? And there's some interesting things as to why people think that is, and I'm going to give you some concepts here that are not just about pickups. It's about kind of a little of everything, but also, but really how it comes down to the guitar stuff. I did a lot of research on it because, when setting price, so let's just say this, that when I set prices for the website, it's honestly a lot of what the market is doing. If someone would let me charge more, I would. Not because, well, I'll tell you why. Because this stuff is hard to make. And it takes a lot of time. And there's a lot of time and work that goes into it. We'll get into some of the specifics. But let's talk about why. First of all, why we even care about this. And I know this is going to get a little deep, but I think it's important to understand a few concepts that, I've been focusing lately on getting joy out of playing my guitars, getting joy out of the instrument, getting joy out of, it doesn't matter. And this can happen whether it's, a $200 guitar or a $10,000 guitar, doesn't matter, as long as you're enjoying it, right? That's really the key. But thinking about that and thinking about the customer experience that I put forward for my website and for our content and stuff, and then having these questions all the time about, like, your pickups are X amount of dollars, this guitar is X amount of dollars, what makes it better than this other one? And so I did a bunch of research on kind of the psychology of pricing, okay? And I've done this before. I knew some of this stuff before, but I wanted to refresh on it. So the last couple of days, I've been reading a lot on it, knowing that I was going to do this podcast today. And there's an interesting psychological thing that happens. People and they've done studies on this where they're basically like, dang it, my stupid camera. It's not my stupid camera, it's my fault. Where they've taken a couple of groups of people, right? And they give them opportunities to buy a couple of different products. and then they talk to him afterwards. And what they figure out is that people that do not have personal agency, um, and who are seeking some sort of happiness or meaning in life tend to focus on price. Um, People who are more kind of satisfied with where they are and more confident, I guess, for lack of a better word, and the people that are capable of kind of living in the moment, um, valuing the experience. So the difference is this: people that price shop, and this is something that I've learned in over doing having businesses for many years. People that price shop are always looking for something else. And the reason I say that is they're always looking for something that they can spend this money on because they don't really want to spend this money on it because they want to spend it on something else. So they're kind of always searching. There's never a happiness with a particular product because the fulfillment of the product itself is not what they're searching for. They're searching for the best deal, they're searching for the cheapest price, they're searching for that sort of thing. Now, you could say, well, I can't afford a lot, so I'm trying to get the best value for my money. But the mentality behind that is actually that you're not content and that you are looking for the next thing, looking for the next thing, looking for the next thing, and not focusing on the experience that the product gives you. You're focused on the price of the product itself. I know this is really super deep, but we're coming around to a point here that's really, really important. Um, so, people that price shop and are looking for $30 pickups and $50 pickups, it's because they don't really want to spend the money on it. If they wanted a good experience and understood what went into it and valued those things, then they wouldn't price shop. They would go for the product that they want. And again, we could get into budget and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is, if you really want something, you're going to save for it. It's just how it works. And so, what happens when you don't look for the value in the experience? So now we're talking about playing guitar, we're talking about having good tone, uh, via the products. Obviously, tone is in the hands and all that stuff. But when we're talking about better pickups, we're talking about what we spend our money on when it comes to our gear. There's a lot uh, of people that don't look for the value in the experience of the thing. And the problem comes in when you're thinking about price over the experience, because this is a hobby, this is something that should mean a lot to us. Sometimes it's a life-saving thing for a lot of. I just got an email the other day. I don't want to get too much into the details, but there was a guy that follows our channel for a long time, was really in a bad place, and he told me, my guitar saved my life, and that's really important. So living in the moment with that and valuing the experience that that thing can bring you means that he doesn't care how much his pickups cost because he's getting a lot of value out of the experience. It's super important. Um, when you don't do that, when you just strictly price shop all the time, what happens a lot of times is you'll shortchange yourself on the potential of the experience because you will think, well, this is where the just as good as guys come in. They say, well, these $30 pickups are just as good as these $100 pickups. So, but are they? How do you know? You didn't spend the money on the good stuff, you bought the cheap stuff. And again, budget aside and lack of self discipline and not being able to save aside, those are things that are super, super important. Um, you just get to a point where you don't expect to get value out of the experience because you're so focused on the product itself. Um, and the problem is that it doesn't ever actually save you any money, because what happens with this mentality uh, is you say, well, I saved this much money on X, so now I can afford to buy Y. But it's not a one-to-one comparison. So I buy a $30 pickup instead of a $100 pickup. Um, so now I can spend $70 on something else, but probably what you'll really do is go spend $100 on two or three other cheap things, and you'll be out and you'll still be worse off. That's kind of what happens. It's just kind of the psychology of how all this stuff works. Um, and so you end up accumulating a pile of less quality, less meaningful stuff, and you shortchange your experience with that stuff, and you're in a constant chase. It's the buy once, cry once thing, right? That's kind of a complicated way to explain the buy once, cry once thing. Um, so subconsciously, you have this FOMO, this like fear of missing out on all these other products because you're constantly chasing, constantly chasing. If you spent the time and the money and invested in the experience, it's a lot better. It's a lot better. So focus on that. Um, oh, this is a good question. Isn't the whole aftermarket industry of pickup making based on people not being satisfied with a product? So that depends on your perspective. I personally don't look at it that way. Um, I've said it many times on this channel, even though a lot of people don't pay attention when I say it. But I don't believe that there's any bad gear. I don't think there's any bad gear in the world right now. I think everything has its place, right? So inexpensive guitars with pickups that sound a certain way have their place, but they work for certain things. Um, I have always been in the pickup business from the perspective of uh, Baskin and Robbins. Um, 32 flavors. I'm coming up with a new flavor. I have a new flavor. And that's why I don't ever badmouth anybody else's pickups because, well, most people, because um, I'm just bringing up, I just have a flavor that I brought to it, and that person has a flavor that they brought to it. And that's also why I don't make certain pickups because that flavor is not my thing. Filtertrons are not my thing. You know what I mean? I would order my Filtertrons from Tim McNelly. Wide range humbuckers, I would order from Lawler because to me, it's not a dissatisfaction thing. It's a 32 flavors thing. So there's that to me is the mentality. Now, are the people that are dissatisfied with what they have, they fall into this other category that they're constantly chasing because they're dissatisfied with what they currently have, which makes a lot of sense, right? If you cheap out on toilet paper, you will spend more on soap. Amen to that. That is absolutely true. Wouldn't you rather have FOMO people buying your product because they would buy all you have available instead of just the one thing they would really want? No, actually, no. Um, I want people to buy the products that I bought that I make because they believe in what they do and they want to try a flavor. It's not a fear. It should not be a fear of missing out. It should not be. It should be uh, an environment of exploration. That's the way I think. That's the way I think of hobbies in general, and guitar playing and music and everything else. Not a dissatisfaction with a thing, but an exploration of a thing. I have a completely different mentality about it than a lot of folks. Well, I hate this. Well, why? It's not bad. You hate it because something else exists and you're worried that you don't have the good thing. uh, you know, that's why. Should I buy this or this? You're worried that you're going to make the wrong decision. Don't look at it like that. Look at it like you're exploring. Yes, I need to make a purchasing decision, but don't be worried about making the wrong one. Enjoy exploring it so you make the right one. It's a mental shift that will change everything. Um, and so we'll talk about what I do to sell pickups and why I think cheap pickups are they're bad for the entire thing. These people that are selling $30 single coils and $50 humbuckers and stuff in working out of their basements are terrible for the entire industry. I'm just gonna say it. They just are. Um, and I work out of a house too, so there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I would 100% encourage anybody to start a business in their home, be able to support their family, be able to support multiple people. I think that's fantastic out of their home. If the more money you can make for yourself and support your family without having to put pants on in the morning, the better, in my opinion. Like that's my goal, right? How well can I support my family within my socks? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's great. So I don't fault anybody for doing that. However, the folks that are building pickups for $30 and building pickups for $50, um, they are they're doing a few things that are hurting the entire guitar industry. And so this is what we want to talk about a little bit. And if you have questions, put a bunch of question marks in what you're asking, and you can also use a super chat because I might miss them. Um, let's see. And to tell you the truth, folks that are price shoppers, I don't really want them as customers anyway. They're definitely more difficult. Price shoppers think they're worried about price, but what they're really worried about is the fact that they're unhappy. And so because of this mentality that we just talked about. And so I kind of don't want them as customers. If they call me, I have done this. I've seen it many times. I'll get in the chat on the website, they'll ask me a bunch of questions, and you could just tell they're just like trying to pick every little thing apart. And it's like, do you want the stuff, or are you trying to make an excuse to not buy it? Because it sounds to me like what you're trying to do is make an excuse to not buy it. If that's the case, it's chances are you're one of those folks that does not want to live in the moment for the experience, but they're so concerned about the product that there is a much higher percentage of chance that you're going to be unhappy with it. If you are the kind of guy who's like, I just want to put the stuff in the guitar, slam an E chord, and feel like $1,000,000, then you're going to buy my pickups because that's what we do, right? Um, that's kind of the thing. Pants are for losers, 100%. I used to have Pantsless Wednesday. I used to actually have this thing where I'd be like, I'm going to literally lay in bed and work all day from bed, but I can't do it anymore because I'm too busy. Um, hang on one second. The lawn guy is here. Okay, sorry. So the one downside to our setup is that the front door is right there, and the we don't have all the sound deadening in yet, and we don't have doors in and stuff. So I was like, let me just mute this, and the lawn guy is here to figure it out. Let's see. No, I'm wearing pants today. We have too much work to do. Is a $50 pickup considered cheap? Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about the cost of why. Um, they're just looking to get something that cheap that matches your specs so they can say, I got the same thing cheaper. That's why I don't. That's why we talk so much about why specs don't matter. Super important. It's the lawn guy. Yeah, it's cool. Uh, yeah, specs don't always tell the story on pickups. Exactly. That is 100%. And it's not that we all have a secret sauce, but we do have we do make things differently, and we do things differently, and it does matter. So let's talk about these $30 and $50 pickups, and let's talk about the difference between those and what I do, or what Seymour Duncan does, or what any of these guys do. Let's talk about that. We got a super chat though. Hey Dylan, I'm tuning in late and leaving early, but I think people in general don't take labor and expertise into account when they price shop. You should always charge well for your expertise. Yeah, the hour and a half that it takes me to make a set of pickups is not what you're paying for. It's the 40 years of doing electronics and the education that I've paid for and all the other. Exactly. You're exactly right. So if you're going to buy a set of $30 pickup, I want to take this from I don't want to be negative about anybody, but here's why how I want to discuss this. I don't want to bag on somebody who makes $30 pickups. I don't. because it's not fair. I wouldn't not want anybody to do that to me. So treat other people how you want to be treated, even though I think it is a bad idea. But even when I say it's a bad idea, I mean it for their benefit as well. And so we're going to talk about this, okay? So first of all, you should ask yourself, why is the pickup cheaper? Because the person, so I was actually just talking to Don Silton, and Doc, he just gave us that super chat, and we were just texting before this live stream. And he was saying what he pays. So he has come to many of my pickup winding classes, and he's learned how to wind his own pickups, and he's actually selling a few now, which is really, really cool. That being said, he still orders pickups from me for his own personal guitars. So I'm not afraid of that or anything. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I think it's super cool that he learns and he wants to understand and learn, and he's sharing it with other people now, and it's growing the entire thing. Like all ships will raise, right? Like I think that's awesome. So he was telling me what he's paying at his volume for a kit for a pickup, for example, like all the parts to make a humbucker, all the parts to make a P90, all the parts to make. And I'm just going to tell you that if a person makes a single coil for $30, they're basically not paying themselves to make it. Okay. They're basically not paying themselves. Humbuckers, they might be losing money selling a humbucker for $50. They're making $8 an hour, honestly. By the time they pay for parts, because they're not buying parts where I buy parts, because they're not doing the volume that I do. If we do 200 pickups a month, we go through 150, about 100. Well, last year we went through about 100 pounds of copper wire. I get different discount prices because I buy so much and we use so much. Those guys are not doing that. I know that the folks that are at the lower volumes, like they're doing, kind of, they've got real jobs and then they're working after work and that kind of stuff, and they're making some pickups on the side. They're paying by the time they make a humbucker, they're making $8 to $10 an hour, literally. That's all they're making to make a humbucker. Dylan, I have an antiquity P90 left over from a project. How would your P90 differ from this antiquity? Very similar, actually. Very similar. That's kind of my P90 is made after a 56 Les Paul, which is kind of very similar to what you're thinking there. So how is he doing? How are they doing this? First of all, the quality of components is not the same as something that I would use, or something that Lawler would use, or something that McNally would use, or something that Seymour Duncan would use, because they're buying them from consumer-facing companies like Mojotone, StewMac, places like this. Those companies, for the hobbyist, are not giving them the same quality of parts at those lower quantities as somebody like me who's buying hundreds and thousands of things at a time, who is calling the person and saying, "You build me this flat work to my specs. No, make this whole 2/1000 of an inch smaller. Okay, let's try it with another batch." Now, here's the thing. For me to do that, I have to buy at large quantities. So, if I let's see, the last time I ordered Strat flat work, I think we ordered 400 sets or something. And to make those running changes and make design changes, now I have to spend money for the CNC drawings and all those sorts of things. It's all outside of that. The folks that are ordering parts, because I've seen the stuff, so I know where they're getting it. I can tell where they're getting parts. So if they're ordering it from StewMac, they're ordering it from Tonecraft, they're ordering it from these places, they're not getting that. They're not doing that, and the quality of parts is different. It just is what it is. Maybe I missed this part. Isn't it useful to have junkers and filler material out there? I'd say the problem is the people present them as more than they are. Nah, I don't worry about that. I don't worry about that so much. So the consumer available stuff that a lot of these smaller pickup builders are, and I'm small, but I'm talking even the cheap guys. They're just using stuff that's just meh, you know. And oftentimes they're doing it based on availability. I know, because when I first started, I had to do the same thing because I didn't have the volume. So if one supplier ran out of something, I would just order it from somewhere else. The product was not as consistent. Now we have enough buying power behind us where I can call the factory and say, yo, I need X amount of hundred of this base plate. I need X amount of thousand of this magnet. I mean, we order 5,000 single coil magnets at a time, and we order probably almost 5,000. I think we're going to order, just about to order 5,000 more bar magnets because we're going through so many P90s. So those are the kind of things where, same thing with wire. I've called up my wire supplier and said, yo, you're winding these spools, man, and they're not working. And they're like, oh, well, send them back to us. Let's look at them. Let's make a running change, etc. Maybe you need to order different weights of spools. Having these conversations when you're winding a few pickups a week out of your garage and selling them for 30 and 50 bucks, you can't do that. So the consistency of the product is just not as good. And the magic, a lot of people ask me about, is it difficult to wind a pickup? No, I could teach you to wind a pickup in an hour. We've taught about 60 people to wind pickups now through some of our classes. In fact, at I think the 24th of this month, we're starting another pickup winding class at Texas Toast. There's a couple of slots left in Denver if you're interested in going to that. I think there's a couple of slots left. You'll build a guitar over a week. And one of the things you do is you wind your pickups. I could teach you to wind a pickup in an hour. The trick is to wind consistently. And consistency is the key. So the magnet strength has to be done correctly. I have $1,000, well, it's $890 piece of equipment to magnetize magnets to keep them consistently. Our pickup winders are $600 a piece. We have 3 of them. There's a lot invested in just equipment to make sure that we have consistency. There's also more money because we're buying 30 pounds of wire at a time to make sure they come out of the same batch so that we can stay consistent. Consistency doesn't matter if I sell let's say I sell a pickup to Shark Air, and I sell a pickup to Aaron Higgs, and I sell a pickup to Rick Nelson, and they put them in their guitars and they're great. But that's because they don't live close to each other, right? So consistency, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but you wouldn't know if, all 3 of those P90s sounded the same. Well, for example, when I was making pickups for John Cruz, we were sending him 75 sets of pickups at a time. And then those were going out to dealers all around the world. He was selling them to places in Tokyo, places in Europe, and they were buying 4 and 5 guitars of the same model at the same time, and they were all hanging on the wall next to each other. And you had to be able to pick up each of those guitars next to each other and have them sound the same or similar or enough to be, you know what I mean, like within tolerance of like, holy crap, this one doesn't sound the same as the other one. So, that's the thing. Are we good? Okay. That is the skill. And that's the thing that as a small pickup builder, you don't, somebody that's only making a few here and there, you don't need to worry about so much. And you don't have to worry about it. Let's see. Let me just run through here. I asked this yesterday. I have a set of your humbuckers and only one of them was signed. Do you normally only sign one? Oh, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. Unless it was a mesh top, because we're not signing mesh tops. Is there a link to your pickups? Yes, it's right here. Hang on. I guess I didn't put this on the screen. DylanTalksTone.com. That's where you go. Jeff, you definitely need to take one of those classes. Maybe I missed this. Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm just trying to make sure that I don't miss anybody. Okay. So here's another thing. So the product consistency is a huge one. Okay. And we work very hard, and honestly, we spend a lot of money to make that happen. Number 2, customer service. I'm going to say that sometimes I don't get to the chat in an hour. However, um, for example, I'll give you an example. I moved this week, and so we're a little behind. So everybody over our normal, we typically ship in 2 to 3 weeks. But everybody that was approaching that limit, I sent them an email and said, "Hey, I'm moving. Uh, I don't even, I don't even say thank you for your patience. I just said, if you need me to refund your money, if you need to give it back because it's taking longer than you thought, you know what I mean? Don't worry about it. I'll take care of you, and maybe we'll buy some stuff later. You know what I mean? I just, I want to do what I say what I mean, right? Um, Not one person wanted their money back. They all emailed me back and they said, "Hey, I'm following the channel. I see what's going on. No worries. It's going to be worth the wait. No big deal." Um, I have looked into some of these companies who sell $30 and $50 pickups, and they take months to get. They don't have the infrastructure set up to have customer service after and before the sale. We have a chat on our website that that you can chat me right now, and I'll give you an answer. Now, don't write me a book. I don't need to hear the whole life story of how you got this guitar and how your grandma, all that. I don't need all that. Just it's a chat. It's for very concise things. No big deal. Because that happens sometimes. But that's what it's for, and we try to do the best we can, and it really helps out. And it's really me. I don't have a secretary or something that doesn't know what they're talking about, or I don't have an offshore situation where they don't know what they're talking about. It's me. If you have a question about pots or caps and you're about to order something, you ask me and I will tell you, and I will share it with you. That takes time, costs money. That infrastructure costs money. To have the app on the website to do it, that costs money. I think it's like $15 a month or something. And we have multiples of those things. So all these things cost money. Um, Here's the other thing. Like we talked about earlier, people that are building pickups for $30 and $50, their company's not going to remain solvent for very long. It's just the way it is. If They're probably not very good businessmen. Well, I know they're not because that's what they're charging. There's no expansion at $30 and $50. There's no way to expand your business. This is a very difficult business to scale because there's only so many hours in a day and there's only so many pickups you can make. And if you're making them at those tight of margins, there's no way to be able to afford extra equipment. There's no way to be able to afford extra help. There's no way to be able to afford distributor discounts because a distributor is going to take 40% right off the top. So there's no way to do that. There's no way to expand at all. So you're always going to be one guy making a few pickups, and you're always going to have that 4 month wait or whatever if you get any kind of popularity, and you're not going to be solvent for very long. So if you bought a set of pickups from me 10 years later, here we are, we're still here. You have a set of pickups. It's like you had a problem, whatever. You call me and be like, yo, I accidentally, whatever, or I sweat so much that it rusted, and what can we do? I'm here for you. Because we structured our business in such a way that was smart and it allows us to be here 10 years later. And so that's a really, really, really important thing. People that are making $30 to $50 pickups are importing them from China. Ain't no other way. That's not actually true. I'm not going to name names, but I know of 3 companies right off the top of my head that are guys in this country making them in their house. 2 of them constantly badmouth me on the internet and say I'm an ass and stuff. Um, that's why I know they're here and what they do and stuff. And people really like their stuff, and it's okay. That's totally fine. I don't care. But, if you can like what you like. But just know, I want you to think about all these things because it's really important. Um, and I think one of the things that people don't value, we go back to the other people um, that don't have meaning in the experience, is the time. It's the time. Folks that don't value time, um, and all they value is the dollar. So saving $1 over the time that's invested to do a thing properly Um, I don't identify very well with those folks. That's probably the nicest way for me to say that. I don't identify with them. Um, because we focus so much on the experience of playing the instrument, this is why we invest so much time in everything else. I've said it many times. Jason Lawler, Seymour Duncan, nothing against those guys. They're great. I know them both. I love them. They're fantastic. Um, but they don't sit here and do this for an hour a week with you. Um, and they don't take the time out of their workday like this and then have to compensate for that hour somewhere else. The investment in the entire experience costs money. It costs time. That camera costs money. This computer costs money. This microphone costs money. The internet that I have to pay for to be able to stream reliably costs money. All this stuff costs money. So the infrastructure that we have um, in place to make all this stuff happen, it all costs time and it all costs money. So those things um, play into this entire deal. At the end of the month, if the lights are still on, I got to make sure that I can do that next month and be happy with the amount of time that I've invested in it to be able to support my family and to be able to give you a product that I am proud of. Because if I'm not proud of it, I'm not going to sell it to you. So there's a lot of value in the non tangibles that when you're price shopping for a $30 or a $50 pickup that a guy's making from home, uh, you know, it's tough. Because here's the question: um, if I ask you, would you rather have time or money? Majority of people are going to say time if they really understand life. So the question is, if you value time, do you value my time? If you don't value my time, go buy from the $30 or $50 guy because he doesn't value his time. So a person who doesn't value their time might as well buy from somebody else who doesn't value their time. The problem is that ain't going to go last very long. Um, the other thing that I feel very, very strongly about is transparency in the business. So, a lot of people say, uh, I know that you only spend $15 for parts, so that's why I think it's stupid that this single coil costs $100. You know, I I've never identified with that because I feel like we're pretty transparent. I'm not going to tell you where I get my stuff. I'm not going to tell you how many wines are on every coil. I'm not going to tell you there's certain things I'm not going to tell you. I'm not. But um, we are pretty transparent around here. If you're on Patreon, especially, you know how transparent we are. And I want people to feel comfortable that when they get something, I'm not trying to tell you that we're making it in some sanitary factory, that it's literally in a room in my house. And I'm proud of that. Um, and I'm proud of the fact that we do this with just a few people. And so being very transparent and sharing as much, you don't get that from these other companies because that sell for $30 and $50 because they don't want you to know. They just don't want you to know. Let's see what you described as difference between a craftsman and a manufacturer. You know, Aaron, that's a really tough balance because we have to be a manufacturer to some extent. Um, because we have to scale this as best we can, right? Like, um, but the way we do it is very important. Um, when we first started this 10 years ago, we were making probably 2 to 3 sets of pickups a week. And just struggling, just like anybody else. And then we kept growing and growing and growing. And about 3 years ago, uh, I had to scale up because I got a deal where I was making a lot of pickups for one particular manufacturer, and I had to scale up, but we couldn't hire anybody. We didn't have the space. So what I had to do was kind of look internally at efficiency and look internally at time management and say, okay, how do you balance exactly what you said? How do you balance being a craftsman and doing all this R&D and spending all this time behind the scenes and designing stuff, not giving up on any of the YouTube content because the community is what makes us who we are. It's you. If you weren't here, we wouldn't have any pickups to make. So we know that we value you because we know that the community is what makes us who we are. Quality content, quality product, but also make more. How do I make more? And what we found was that we spent a bunch of time with efficiencies, and now I could make 3 times, 4 times what I used to be able to make, and not stress about it. Um, I used to get so stressed if I missed a couple hours of work because I just felt like I couldn't get it all done. And don't get me wrong, I'm my brain's going 24/7, but it's much more manageable now. So we really had to find that, you know, to really had to find that. Guys are doing as secondary uh, income source or as a hobby can afford to undervalue their labor, so it's not the thing keeping the lights on. Here's the problem with that, and this is something that we have not talked about. And this is my main problem with those guys that do that stuff. Okay, so sure, they don't need the money. Fine. You know, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still make pickups and I would not lower my prices. Here's why. They changed the expectation in the marketplace. And this is where the entire market suffers. Because what happens is people now expect that it can be done for a particular price. Fortunately, there are many folks who value what I do and what people like me do. And I'm sure you're in a business that, you know, if you are in a business that you have to show people what is valuable about what you do, then you know that the skill in that or the time that you invest in that, right? The problem is that when they don't do that, it makes everybody suffer because just as all ships will rise, there's always going to be somebody trying to poke a hole in the bottom. And fortunately, the number of people that are trying to get the ship to rise is greater than the people that are poking a hole in the bottom. We can stay ahead of it. But that's what these guys are doing. They're poking a hole in the bottom. And they are making people expect something for nothing. And that really, that's what it irritates me more than anything. I'm sure they make great stuff. I'm sure people that I have nothing bad to say about those folks. But what annoys me about the situation is that they poke holes in something that should be valued more um, by other people, and that's the part that is really really frustrating. But fortunately, many of you are awesome, and you know that what it really takes, and have spent the time and understand what it takes to do this stuff. And that goes across all parts of the guitar industry. You know, I've said it many times. Like, there's a reason why a Les Paul is $3,200. There's a reason why a standard Tele now, well, an AVR2 or whatever, AV2, whatever, it's American Vintage 2, is $2,100. There's a reason why they cost that much. Um, and and the folks that value uh, the experience, um, they know. And the folks that need to worry about the money or want to worry about the money don't. And it's okay. It's totally fine. That's what we're all here for, to find enjoyment in whatever we have. But this whole thing about cheap pickups has people really, they ask me about it all the time. So that's kind of why I want to get into the mentality of it. Um, did Dylan buy a boat? No, I did not. I do not have a boat. Let's see. Some people that sell cheap are also just starting and trying to get their foot in the door, like an intern working for free. I don't do that. I don't understand that. I agree on the undervalued labor. Yep, exactly. Yep. Well, awesome. People that do cheap work at any skilled labor position hurts everyone in the business. I don't work on cars at my house or for $40 an hour because it hurts my 8 to 6 job. It's $100 an hour. Exactly. You're right. That's exactly right. Uh, yeah, um, I really hope that people see a video like this or watch our content. Um, you know, Often, many times, a lot of times, people accuse me of being snobby, and maybe I am. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care if I am really. Because I like what I like, right? We all like what we like. Uh, but my real motivation for it is to look into it and figure out why something costs a certain amount of money. Okay, we go back to the pocket knife thing again. So here we go. The ProTech automatic. Well, it's probably too dark to see it, but it's blue. Uh, Not an inexpensive knife. Why? Well, when you do a bunch of research about the company, figure out what goes into it, and you start to realize, all right, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's not something you can buy at a gas station. Um, so I think about it not as a snobby thing, but as I want the experience. I want to learn the thing. I want to expand what I know about a thing. And typically, if you're willing to expand what you know about a thing, you will value that thing more. Usually, if your motivation is not, um, one of scarcity and one of like always worried that you're missing out or always worried that there's something else that you could be buying instead of this thing. Just enjoy this thing. And here's the other thing too. It will also help you. It'll help all of us to enjoy less expensive stuff. Um, if you, when you, this is not just about expensive things. It's about everything. If you get a Squire, I'm about to buy a couple of Squires. In fact, I have a Squire base coming, and I'm really looking forward to it because I want to see what it is. I don't want to compare it to anything else. I don't care about how good it is compared to a more expensive one. I know it's not. It's no big deal. What I want to know is what it is. I want to experience it. What can I experience for 249 bucks? Like, I want to know what I can experience, not what it can't do. Um, and not worried about comparing it. Like, this is the thing that is in my hand right now. This is what I want to experience. And I want to know what it can do. And that's my motivation for it, you know? Yeah. You're a Kershaw guy. I got a couple of Kershaws. Actually, one of you in the chat bought it for me as a gift. Actually, both of my Kershaws were given to me by people from gifts in the chat. They're both green with black blades. How weird is that? Uh, Got here late. Where do you stand on the import pickup makers? They seem to me to be the ones that are the hole pokers. Um, I don't worry so much about the import pickup makers because all of that stuff is coming out of a few factories in Korea and in China, and you just know when you look at it what it is. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Um, I don't worry about that. I'm more concerned about the folks that undervalue what they do here in the United States. The folks that are making stuff by hand and selling it for peanuts. I just I don't understand it. Um, it's it's a weird thing. It happens in every profession though. I used to have a window cleaning company. We had a few people working for us. It was pretty awesome. I actually really liked having a window cleaning company. But there was always somebody who would, you know, back in the day, this is 20 years ago now, but um, we were doing a window for, I don't know, $4 a pane, and somebody would come along and do it for two. And you're like, "Well, I can't even show up for that. Like I can't work for that. That's half. I can't work for that." Well, all you buy is soap and a couple of squeegees, and no, I can't. I can't work for that. I can't do it. I can't support everything that we do. So it's just it's always something in everything. But that's why I think I just wanted to have a more constructive conversation about this and share with y'all what some things to think about. Now, you may leave this conversation and go, I'm going to go buy some $30 pickups. Doesn't hurt my feelings whatsoever, at all. Not at all. I just want you to know what you're buying. Matter of education, you make a choice. I have no hard feelings whatsoever. People undervaluing their labor is a race to the bottom. Yeah, the race to the bottom thing is something that I talk about and bring up a lot on this channel, because I feel like with inexpensive guitars, people are doing that. Instead of just recognizing what the instrument is and, like I said, experiencing it. Buy a $200 guitar, treat it like a $200 guitar, know it's a $200 guitar, let it be what it is. I think there's too much comparison across price points. In no other industry is there this much cross price point comparison. You know, nobody, now I'm a Volkswagen guy, so it always comes to this, but nobody looks at a Golf and nobody looks at an Audi A3 and says this one's just as good as this one. Well, they're not actually. They're different. They look the same, but it's Epiphone Gibson. They look the same, but there's so many principal differences that make the experience for someone who is concerned about the experience makes it different. It makes it better. And I think there's too much comparison shopping. Now, if you want to compare a Golf to a Civic that is in the same class, then that makes more sense. But I feel so. Let's take a Player Strat and a SE Silver Sky. Don't compare the SE Silver Sky to the American Silver Sky. They're not the same. I know. I've had all of them. The American Strat versus the MIM one. They're not the same. So don't compare them. Now, go across the same kind of class of guitar makes total sense because you're comparison shopping. You're like, which flavor do I want, right? And that's the way I think I look at everything is flavors. Now, as you go more expensive with stuff, as you go more expensive with stuff, oftentimes you will have to be more nuanced. Do you play guitar enough, and do you understand the nuance between various aspects of things? Not everybody does, but that doesn't mean you won't. So continue to learn so that you will get to a point where you're like, oh, like today, you might say, I can't tell the difference between these GFS pickups and your pickups. So I'm just going to buy the GFS ones. Totally cool. That's good. I don't want you to spend more money than you need to spend to enjoy your hobby. 100%. Now, in 2 years, when you have been playing and playing and playing and playing, you're like, oh, now I kind of get it. Then you come and buy a set of pickups from me. Makes total sense. But it's a good decision. It's one that you're in the moment. You're like, okay, I lived with this guitar. I played it. I used these cheap pickups. They were great. And now they're not so great for me. And now I know. And now I understand. You didn't spend too much money too soon. You didn't spend money on the wrong thing for you at the time. You didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not offended by you buying those GFS pickups first and then maybe sometime down the road learning something. Same thing with Epiphone. Everybody that plays an Epiphone thinks they're amazing, and they are. I love them. I actually have one on order right now. But there are certain things about a Gibson that I just can't live without. One of them is the finish. I just love the way the finish feels. And so it's not available on an Epiphone, so I'm going to buy a Gibson. Those are things. So as our values change, as our experience changes, but always to me, I always look at it as an exploration thing, not as a comparison thing, but as an exploration thing. Um, yeah, it's super cool. It's weird, like so many other hobbies aren't like this. So many other hobbies are like the cheapest thing and the most expensive thing coexist. You know, yeah, I have a $50 Kershaw. I also have a Chris Reeves Sabenza. I like them both. I carry them both. I think they're very cool. I have a Mont Blanc fountain pen and I have a Lamy Safari that costs $29. And I actually use the Lamy Safari more. I mean, I really like, that's the thing. In all those other hobbies, it's like there's a reason to have a Lamy Safari. There's a reason to have a Kershaw. There's a reason to have a regular utility knife. But then on other days, you're going to pull out your Mont Blanc. On other days, you're going to pull out your Chris Reeve. On some days, you're going to pull out your Epiphone or your Squire or your Harley Benton. On other days, you're going to want your Les Paul. It's just kind of how it is. So yeah, very cool stuff, man. Sabenza for the win. Dude, that knife is incredible. Jude, I just bought a, what is that thing? Three Rivers Manufacturing Atom. You should check it out. I'm not saying it's a Sabenza, but it's a really good knife. So yeah, the real answer is play more. Like everybody said, the longer you play, the more you learn. Yeah. Yep. There you go. You guys, this has been fun, man. Thanks for hanging out. We usually try to keep these to an hour on Tuesday. I will do what I can to upload this to the podcast platform maybe by tomorrow morning so that all of you can listen to it. If you're an audio person, you can listen to it on Spotify as video too, and all the other podcast platforms. We will be working to get the rest of our YouTube setup done over the next week or so. So things will be changing around here and making things awesome. If you are a Patreon member, you can go over to Patreon and see what we're doing because I uploaded an update video yesterday and I'll probably upload another one tomorrow. So thanks for hanging out and we'll see you in the next video.